28, 2024 Board of Supervisors work session. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone who is on the roll call is present at the meeting. Township meetings are recorded for the purpose of preparing the minutes, and the recording is destroyed after the minutes are approved. The meeting will be posted online on the Township YouTube channel. The link can be found on the Board of Supervisors page on the Township website. It is requested that all persons wishing to speak before the board shall state their name, address, and the subject matter upon which they wish to speak for the record. In the interest of facilitating the business of the board, all persons addressing the board shall be limited to 3 minutes, unless such time is extended by the chair for good cause. Individuals are requested to remain in their seats and to respect when other persons are speaking. The Board of Supervisors will provide a reasonable opportunity for citizens to comment on any non-agenda items after all agenda items have been addressed, but prior to the adjournment of the public meeting. I also want to announce that the board had an executive session immediately prior to this meeting to discuss litigation and receive legal guidance. First item on the agenda is the TextMyGov service presentation.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Luke, you ready to go?
Yeah, can you all hear me okay?
I can't hear you.
See if I can turn up my volume here.
Uh-oh.
Is that a little better?
I can't hear him. Oh, hold on. Stuff. It is on our end. Check, check, check one. Ooh, hold on. How does it?
Is it coming through now? Can you hear me okay?
How does it work? Like an hour ago, and not work now. Definitely not that. Give it a try now, Luke.
All right, am I coming through okay?
Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and speak up then. If it's difficult to hear me, let me know. But I know Zoom can be fun sometimes, so we appreciate you letting us come in and doing a quick overview of the program. Just as a background before we jump in, we've been in conversations with Jason over there for a few months now, so we appreciate taking a few minutes to look into the program and to consider it. I'll go ahead and, if I share my screen, will everybody be okay to see it okay? Let me try this. Is that coming through okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Awesome. Well, good. It says an overview, TextMyGov, what we do and where we come from. So we only work with local government. So with other townships, we've been able to work with boroughs, counties over there in Pennsylvania. So as far as the service, as far as what we provide for the township is we offer a two-way texting solution to local government. So one of those ways being we can give the township mass text capabilities to send out to residents that choose to opt in or sign up for the program. So I know we talked about, if there's a road closure or events going on in the township, they can send a simple text to the resident's phone. What I mean with two-way is, as along with the push notification side, we also offer a text in interactive side for the residents. So essentially how that works is we allocate a local phone number. So looking at the township for you all, it'd be a 610 phone number that's allocated to the township. That's going to be used for whenever residents have simple questions or need to report an issue like a pothole, or if there's a tree down, they can do so by text. So I've got a few examples of the text inside for in a few minutes for you all to try out. So if you wanted to keep your phone handy, we'll have you guys try that all out. As far as what we do, the program is a web-based dashboard. And so we allocate a web-based backend. We assign a project manager from our setup team to build out that backend and create that for you all, create the notification groups and get everybody trained and familiarized. And then the big thing with us, you guys can guess it, but there's no download needed for the residents as well as for you guys. So as far as the portal goes to send out the text, you just need access to internet or a web browser to log in. And then on the residents end, they just simply need to have the capabilities to text to use the program. And then how we help get good engagement from the residents is just by the marketing materials that we would provide. So we help get a widget that sits somewhere on the township website to get the residents familiarized on how to use the program. And then we can also help create promotional flyers. So this is Douglas Township over near you guys as well, and they've got a few things as far as how the residents can use the program. So the top half of this talks a little bit about the text inside. They've got their local 610 number there, and they can text in about questions about permits, or if they need to report a fallen tree, they can do so and follow the automated response system after that. And then on the bottom is where they can sign up for, they've got a specific group for road alerts. So if they wanted to text in Douglas roads to that 5-digit number, once they do that, they'll be opted in and signed up for that notification group. This can be posted out through, I know you sounds like you guys utilize social media like Facebook and things like that to help get the word out about the program. Physical news presses as well typically help engagement that way. But jumping back to my slide here, I'll jump to the text inside. So we're actually based out of Utah, so we use this 435 number for our demonstrations. But if you guys wanted to try texting in initially, whenever we roll out the program, we'll have the residents start by texting in hi just to get them accustomed on how to use the program. So if you wanted to try texting in hi to this number, it should kick back a response, a few options the residents can do at that point. See a few coming in as well. As you guys are getting those responses, keep in mind too, this is just our demonstration. So for your response there, it might be a little bit different as far as, maybe instead of the notification group at the bottom being city one, it's going to be the township's keyword that the residents text in. So depending on how you guys would like the residents to use the program, we can change this response up as an entrance message. And then starting out too, if you guys still have your cell phones handy, if you wanted to try, oops, let's stop sharing my screen here. Let me retry that. Okay. Let me know if that's not popping up, but if you wanted to try texting and building permit to that same number, this one's going to be allocated to the township. So it's going to get a customized response for you there. And we just grabbed, what we did was we just grabbed the link where they can find the building permit application on the website and then just pasted it in there so they can get straight to the portion of the website to fill that out. As you guys are texting in, how the system works is when the residents text in questions or keywords, essentially, it's going to pick up on those keywords that are linked to these pre-designated or built out responses. So you guys have full control of what questions, I'm sorry, what responses are being sent back to the residents depending on what they text in. And then lastly, our that was our quick responses, but if you wanted to try tree down, this one is going to walk you through how residents can report an issue. So it's going to ask them a few questions depending on the issue being texted in, and then automatically route it to the corresponding department. So that one you can feel free to make up whatever responses. I think it asks for an address, a description. You guys can make up whatever for today's sake.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So basically, we would develop, I'm going to call these prompts, right? These prompts like tree down, building permit. And then there would be a place where the residents could see where all these prompts were to get the information, or they just try different things, or how does that work?
Right. Yeah, there's a few different ways we can go about that. Again, it depending on what calls come into the offices is where we can get a good feel on what residents will be inquiring about. So we'll typically sit down with each department and say, hey, what questions come in, and help create these keywords. We can attach additional trigger words as well. So if instead of tree down, if it's fallen tree, for example, it's still going to pick up on that keyword and send them into that flow of questions following it. So
But is that something you guys set up, or is that something you teach us how to set it up?
yep. So going back to our project manager, we provide unlimited support, and then initially our setup implementation process takes about 30 to 45 days. So that's where we'll do the majority of the building out the auto responses, making sure every response is what you'd like it to say to the residents. So yeah, we take on a big load of that before going live. And then obviously the main goal is to, whenever there needs to be changes for these responses, we want the officials to be comfortable making those changes. But again, that's where we dedicate that project managers to help out, kind of take off the initial workload of building these out.
Right, and if there are changes that look like maybe it's pointing to HTML in some cases, so if we make a change at our end, then you have to be aware of that. For example, if we move a document from one place to another, or update the document as a slightly different name, you're going to need to do that, right?
Yeah, or honestly, I'll go ahead and pull over my screen where we've got the building permit example and show you how easy it is for them to switch it up. So what I did here under our one response words, I just searched up building permit and it pulled up the example for today. Like we talked about, if they texted in like building application, for example, it's still going to send them this same response that you guys received. And if ever you need to make a change to this response in the future, you can just hit this little pencil icon, and from there you can edit the link that they would like to click on and so forth. Yeah, what other questions do you all have for me before I showed you our push notification side?
Hi, Luke. This is Marla Hexter. I've got questions. So this is an opt-in, which means, like we have an opt-in newsletter and we have what, maybe 400 or 500? So we have, how many households do we have? We have like, what, 1,900 households, and we have maybe 500 of them. So maybe 20% are getting the newsletter. So maybe we'll only get 20% to opt in on this. Do you find, what are you finding in the communities where this is? What is the percentage of households who sign up for this?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, right? It's different from email, where you've got to almost be on your email looking for the blast to be sent out, right? It's going to be a kind of a more urgent text, so it's going to pop up right in front of them. But as far as excuse me. As far as the engagement goes, we see anywhere off the bat, there's going to be a little bit of a education barrier. So once the residents find out about the program at the start, we find that they continue to use it. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a sickness from the weekend, but and then depending on how aggressively you guys choose to market the program, so obviously the website widget or the personalized flyers is where you'll get more engagement coming back.
But I understand about how we can push engagement, but what I'm asking is, in your experience, what is the typical percentage of residents that will sign up for this? Is it 10%, is it 50%, is it 80%? What are you seeing?
Yeah, typically as a trend is where we'll find anywhere from 20 to 40% is what we find.
I mean, the reason I'm asking this question is if 20 to 40%, let's split the difference and say a third, sign up for this, the other 2/3 are still going to be getting on the phone. So I'm trying to understand how much time and energy this will save us if we're just going to have less than half be on it. Now, maybe it'll be the half that always calls in, so that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and that's it again, we've had more than that. That's typically the average is where we see that. We've had some that go up towards the 40 to 60%, but it's typically depending on the avenues that you guys take to market the program. So if it's social media, obviously the demographic that are just on social media are going to see that. Typically, we like to try doing a physical newsletter or something that's going to be attached to a water bill, for example, just to get it in front of more residents and find out about it.
And the other question I had is, at what point does a human being get involved? That is, I'm assuming a lot of this is automated, information's going to get pushed out. There'll be some standard questions and answers, but what if, it's like when you call these other automated things and you're like, I just want to talk to a person, right? At what point can they just talk to a person? Or is
Yeah.
that
Absolutely. Yeah, that if the system doesn't do, obviously our goal is to take a lot of the phone calls coming into the office. But if the system isn't automatically responding, there's still going to be questions that ultimately, right, if it doesn't have the response built out into the keyword, then they're just going to get what we call a similar match or an unrecognized response. I see one of you guys texting in emojis trying to break the system, but what we'll do, so you guys experience what we call an unrecognized response. So it's going to say, sorry, we didn't find a match. We can reroute them to the township website, or we can give them more instructions on, which departments to call into or give them further instructions at that point.
So again, just to clarify, this system is 100% automated, and the only time a human being comes in is if they pick up their phone or get in their car to come and talk to a human being.
Yeah, or if they even need to, on the right-hand side, we have a reply button. So if they come in here and click this, we can go ahead and type out a direct message to that specific resident and wait for a response back.
Okay, thank you.
What other questions do you guys have I want to make sure we're getting make the most of our time tonight.
Hi, it's Marla again. I had another question. So let's say, hypothetically, we're like, wow, this is really interesting, but we're not sure we want to go all in. Is there an option for like a pilot program just to kind of try it out, or is it all or nothing?
Yeah, typically we have such a big investment getting the back end built out, as well as dedicating our support staff to get this up and live. So as far as like a trial or a sandbox, we don't do anything of that as it sits today. What we do to help out with that is where we have like unlimited support staff. So if there's any issues that come up, in the life of the contract, we don't charge per support hours or anything like that. So any questions that come up, we have that project manager available to you guys.
And is the contract year to year, or are we locked in for a certain number of years?
Yeah, great question. So we do ask for a 2-year commitment up front, and then after the 2 years, it reverts to that year to year.
Sorry, I have one other question.
Sure.
What's the typical size of communities you serve? Because we're kind of a small community. I mean, do you serve small communities, large communities, medium communities, or do you sway one way or the other?
Yeah, it's funny you ask. We actually so we work with other smaller agencies and even bigger. So I think our how we do that is just depending on the customizable backend. So I think our smaller customer that we work with is going to be I think we work with a 70 population. They're using it for outbound push notifications. And then the biggest is where we work with an agency upwards of 2 million. So we work with all sizes.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? You want to put your,
So from what I can see, the cost for the first year would be $4,400 plus $1,000 for the setup.
Yep. Yeah, I'll pull over the proposal for everybody.
And then it would be $4,400 a year from that point forward.
That's right. Yep. For the first year, there is a setup fee, which we did do a little bit of a incentivized discount for that as our for our flagship discounts. So we typically ask for, again, it's around 40 to 50% of that initial first year. So what used to be 2,000, we knocked it down to $1,000. So they dropped you guys down from the first year costs at 6,400. We now have it at 5,400 to get up and live, and then total years ongoing after that. So for the second year of the contract, it'd be 4,400, and then if you guys choose to be with us after the initial term, it'd be 4,400 after that. So.
Okay.
Going back to the back end here, I know we want to be conscious of time, but as far as our notification side, if ever you need to push out a text, you can click our notifications tab, and we've got a few different groups that we show here. Depending on what kind of information you'd like to send out, we can customize a group, or if it's easier just to keep it all under one general group for all of the text you send out, we can do that as well. And then our keyword, so residents that choose to sign up, they would just text in the keyword assigned to the group there. Sending out a text on the right side, we'll just use our city alerts group here, and we'll go ahead and type out the message to say, the road will be closed from 5 p.m. today. And then once we're ready to go, you'll have a green send message button that you'll click, and it's going to go out to everybody that's signed up for these.
Luke, are we supposed to be seeing what you're typing?
It should be, is this showing up okay? Oops.
We only got the last page of the 3-page document that's showing on the shared.
Oh, let me see if I can. I know I switched screens, so let me see if I can reshare. Sorry about that. Okay, is that showing up now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So just to go back on, if you ever need to send out a text, you click the notification side. So I'll go ahead and re-click that for today. And then you've got a few different groups to choose from. Again, we can keep it all under one or have multiple. And then on the right-hand side, you can click the group and then type out the message. And on the bottom, you'll have a green send message button that you'll click on, and it's going to go out to everybody that's signed up. You can also include URLs or PDFs for the residents to click on. So if it's, a specific event going on that you have a flyer attached to it, you can have them click on that. The other part of our program is instead of sending a text out on the fly, we can actually come in here and schedule these out ahead of time. So if you know anything that, if you have anything that you know of ahead of time, you can go ahead and select the date and time that you'd like the text to go out. And then instead of sending it out right then and there, you can just schedule it out for that specific time and date. As far as keeping it at a high level, that's what we wanted to get out of today. I just wanted to make sure we didn't leave anything on the table as far as questions or concerns. So I'll leave it open if there's any questions from you all.
One last question. I noticed that the discount you're giving us for the setup says that it's good through the June the 5th. I assume that's negotiable.
Yeah, so what we do whenever we provide a discount is we have to tie it to a date. So if there's not, if obviously if there's going to be a time frame for you guys to come to a decision on this, we can be flexible. We just, our goal with this was just to make sure we don't have discounts open-ended. So we want to work towards a time frame for that.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the board? Nope. Do we want to discuss this today and maybe make a decision next week, or what do you all want to do?
I'd like a little bit more time to. I'd like a little bit more time to review some of the information I didn't have an opportunity to look at.
Okay. Pardon me?
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, so we'll discuss this and make a decision next week. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Diane.
Okay, that'd be nice to have that done in advance by somebody that's technically able to do that. Yes, you. Be nice for you to do that ahead of time. So, how's this different from me using my phone to go to the Lower Frederick Township website and just look for permits and information, or emailing somebody, or our police pushing out something that we need to know? I'd like the 4,500 to go into capital improvements for the Zieglerville sewer project. So hope you'll all consider that.
Thank you. My sense is that a lot of staff time is taken up with resident questions that could be more easily answered that way, but I think that's one concern. Go ahead, Warren.
Luke, I guess you probably didn't hear that because the mic wasn't on.
Yep, I did not. Can you repeat the question, please?
The tree down example, if I text in that there's a tree down on my road, what do you immediately do with that information?
Yeah, great question. Let me pull up the back end log here and help you out with that. I'll pull over to my dashboard and go under the recent log. So this tracks all the text coming in and out of the program. I'll pull up one of the examples from tonight.
Obviously, you must forward that information to somebody, right?
Correct.
You thought I fixed a tree.
Yep, that's exactly right. So what we do, once the resident had filled out and followed the prompts here, it gets the final message. Thank you for reporting. On the bottom, I'll scroll in a little bit, but on the bottom is where we can attach recipients depending on the issue. So for this example, if there's a tree being down, if there's a specific person or department that typically handles the issues, our system's going to compile this whole conversation into an email and send it off automatically to the corresponding department.
Okay, so I see the benefit of having that email to back something up so that there's a record, but I fail to see the efficiency of having a middleman to get the information that I want to go somewhere quick. Why is this better than me just calling the township office or the police or the roadmaster if I want the message to get through to solve my problem?
Yeah, No, it's a great concern too. Our goal is to really help streamline the process. So help keep it more available to the residents to report issues, as well as kind of remove that middleman of relaying that information and just get it directly to the correct department to be handled.
This is also getting text. That's going directly to who we would have on. So whether it's Public Works, somebody's getting a text also. It's not just going out as an email.
Correct. Yep.
Warren was asking about who's going to get it. So where it becomes efficient is it's after hours and nobody's probably in the building to answer the phone call. So if this would go through as a text, then it's going to Public Works or myself. So you can receive more of an immediate answer as opposed to, it gets called in. I guess it would go through dispatch or how it gets around to Public Works now.
So they'll have access to talk to people that I don't have access to.
The system, yes.
In other words, I can't text Tommy after hours.
It's not efficient for Tommy's phone number to be out to everyone. So if you go through the system, it can go to Tommy, it could go to Art, it could go to whoever's in Public Works.
Thank you, Luke. This has been very informative.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for your time. I appreciate you taking a few minutes tonight, but if there's any other questions that come up, feel free to reach out, but we'll plan on reaching out either later this week or sometime in the following weeks to find out the consensus for tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Next on the agenda is the Manning property EDU discussion.
So this discussion was tabled at the March 26th work session meeting. At that meeting, the board had a consensus to refund the 6 CDUs that were purchased in 2008. This has happened. What I provided you was the same information that was provided at that meeting regarding the other request by Mr. Manning. I don't know if you want me to go through what was in the request.
How about just a high-level summary?
At that time, we received a request last year regarding 5 EDUs that were freed up during the Manning developments. At the time, the board was asked to consider township purchase EDUs back, allow them to stop paying quarterly fees on inactive EDUs, but hold them for future development, or turn them back over to the township. And as the board may recall, this is what kind of pushed us into creating the dormant EDU policy. So the request is regarding 5 EDUs or 5 dormant EDUs that had quarterly sewer charges paid through the third quarter of 2022, and they were requesting a refund of $35,785.64.
So if I can maybe just pick it up from the last time we discussed this, and if I'm misstating this, someone can correct me. We talked about providing a portion of this back.
So one of the proposals was when the new plant, or one of the suggestions was when the new plant went into operation, which was in March of 2018. So I did go back, and the full amount paid from that time through 2022 was $16,125. And currently, with the outstanding balance due, there'd be $5,250 with incorporating the dormant EDU policy as of the beginning of January of this year, for the first quarter of this year. And then the other numbers that would have been in play would be the $1,500 per EDU, which comes straight out of Section 4G of the EDU policy, the dormant EDU policy.
And is the entire amount subject to the administrative fee?
For the EDUs, that would be a 10%. $6,750. So for the EDU return with the 10% admin fee per the policy, it'd be $6,750.
Okay, so you're talking about three portions. One is the amount paid for sewer rent, which is $16,125. I'm sorry, I missed the second one. And the last one was the EDUs at $1,500 each minus the 10%, which would be $6,750. Sorry, what was the second number you?
So the second number was the current outstanding, which is $5,250. So we've not required them to pay since they made their initial request in 2023. It's six quarters.
So
Five at the 1,000 per quarter for the 5 EDUs at the rate, and then the
Right.
250.
so what are we looking at then? The 16,125 and the
six-
6,750 potentially?
It's 22,875. I'm doing my math right.
And what is he asking for? He's asking for 35,785.
Correct.
This is a question for Peter. Is there any kind of precedent if we, I mean, how many others are out there that may be asking us for this?
My understanding, this is a very unique situation.
Okay, what does the board think?
Well, there are other dormant EDUs that have been paying that are still out there. So it could set a precedent by paying the 2018 to current. And Eric is willing to talk. Eric's asking to talk if you want to invite him up.
Go ahead. Just make sure the green light is on. Thank you.
First off, whatever you guys decide is fine with us, but I think you're missing the point. The point is, which we learned during listening to the proceedings here, apparently there's a municipal code. Municipal code, I believe, is 65% for dormant EDUs. The municipal code was put into effect long before 2008. So my point to that is, all these years, you should have been following municipal code, and that is which says you can't charge more than 65% for a dormant EDU. You have been. You've been charging full bore. In fact, the bill that we got this year is not reduced either to the 25% that you all have already voted on. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm just doing a quick calculation. So 65% just from 2018 would be $10,481.
Like I said, however you decide to do it is fine. I just think that you need to pay attention to the municipal code that was put into effect long before any of you started here. Not trying to pass blame or anything, but I think now that you're aware of that, I don't think you can overlook that. And as a board, you adopted that you're only going to charge 25% to people with dormant EDUs. Right. I understand what we have here is in the past, not saying that. But I think that you have to at least consider that the municipal code had thought about this prior to 2008. That's all I'm saying.
So my understanding is, Peter, we're allowed to charge up to 65% of the rent for a dormant EDU?
Under the municipalities planning code, I believe actually it's 60. I'm trying to confirm that right
All
now.
right, so we're offering you 16,000 and you want 12. That's good. I'm good with that.
Like I said.
Well, I'm just doing 35% of 35,000.
Just bringing awareness.
I know, I appreciate it.
My numbers were because you all voted to only,
Right, but that
Charge
goes
the
back to
25%.
whenever we voted on it before that.
Understood.
So I encourage people, the next time you're out and you see these previous public officials, you can point this out to them as well. Because I do take issue with everybody saying, you guys, and I know you corrected it, but I mean, that goes back like decades, and yeah, we're
blaming
getting the
anybody.
short end of the stick, and I'm trying to do it right, but if you want it done that way, I'm happy to do it that way, and I think that's probably a fair way to do it.
so the other point to this is the new sewer bill still doesn't reflect what you guys passed.
That's, yeah,
That's a problem.
yep. No, I appreciate that.
That's easy to remedy, Eric.
Understood.
That's on me.
Just bring it to your attention.
No, I'm aware. That's why the amount that I gave them outstanding took into account this first quarter of this year.
So if we take 35% of the total,
No,
No?
it's 60, not 65.
All right,
So, yeah,
40%.
yes.
You got a calculator there?
well, I don't have the exact number, but
Well, presumably it's this, right?
why don't we just rough a number in? It's $14,000. And then the 6750 on top of that for the EDU reimbursement. So my suggestion would be, if the board is okay with that conceptually, dollar-wise, plus or minus whatever Jason is going to calculate, that we just ask Jason to finalize the numbers, assuming that they're going to come in close to 14,000 plus 6,750. And then at the next meeting, he provides those numbers to the board, and we vote on it to reimburse the Mannings that amount of money.
That works for me. And Eric, thank you very much for being completely frank and honest with us. And we could have considered the higher number. And, you know, we are learning as a board that there were many things done in the past that we are trying very hard to do things differently, but we keep stumbling across them all the time. So we will get there one day. How does the rest of the board feel?
I'm in consensus to have Jason work up the final numbers.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we're going to run the numbers. It looks like it's going to be 20, 21,000, somewhere in that vicinity. And we can address this next week and make a decision, and you'll get your check.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the non-uniform handbook. Who's going to handle this, Peter or Jason? Okay.
Okay, so what you have in front of you is the summary for the recommended changes from the information gathering that we had. Please note that the draft that you were given was Roseanne's draft. So Peter has been working on that original draft, so we still have to merge those documents together. So at this point, I would just be looking for a consensus on whether the board is in agreement with the proposed changes from the first draft, or the fifth draft, actually, but from the last draft that you saw.
Peter, have you seen this? Does everything look good to you?
Well, as far as the changes go, yeah, I mean, generally, what I'm doing to the prior draft is really, I'm not making comments on policies for the most part or anything. I'm just wordsmithing it. Roseanne, I think, kind of pulled from a lot of different sources, so I'm trying to make everything uniform, trying to make it a little more readable. But nothing, as far as these latest changes, nothing jumps out at me as problematic or something I'd be like, whoa, wait a second, you shouldn't be going there. I mean, it's your choice. These are mainly policy decisions for the board, and they work for me.
Okay, thank you. I'm okay with the changes. And just for the public, we are in the process of updating our HR manual, which dates from the 90s and is very, 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 very overdue for an update. Any other comments from the rest of the board? Does that mean that the rest of the board is, in general, okay with the updates?
Yes. Chuck Yeiser says yes.
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 Okay, so it's my understanding the next step is we are going to see a full, an updated draft,
Correct.
and will we be able to get that in time to potentially approve this at our next meeting next week?
Probably not. I'm going to try,
Okay.
but I don't want to make promises I can't absolutely keep. However, by the next work session, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so we'll put this for the next work session. Okay, that brings us to township code discussion. Oh, sure, go ahead, sorry.
Peter, while you're wordsmithing, are you looking at things from a legal perspective? Or could we pay somebody to wordsmith the document that would charge a lot less?
That's part of what I'm doing, yes.
You stated that you weren't looking at it from that
No,
perspective.
I wasn't looking at it from a policy perspective.
Okay,
Meaning
but
I'm
you
not,
are
I'm not
looking.
I'm not looking at it to say, well, I don't think they should get 20 days vacation. I think they should only get 15. That's a policy decision for the board. What I'm looking at it is I'm making it, so yes, it's more legible. And so, yes, it complies with, legally complies with the law. And so that also, ultimately, if I have to defend it, I feel it's the best handbook to defend.
Awesome. I'm glad I asked my question because I did not understand that from what you said. Thanks.
Thank you, sorry about that, Diane. All right, township code discussion.
Okay, so what you have in front of you, and I do realize that you guys got this today, so these were if the board wishes to table this discussion for the next meeting or the next work session, I would certainly understand. What we're going to be looking for is we're presenting questions on different parts of the code. We'd be looking for direction from the board, whether there's interest to take a look at these sections and maybe more, as some of these would go to the Planning Commission for review and some would be dealt with directly by the board. So if I understand if you're not prepared to talk about any of this tonight and we just want to wait, but that's certainly your choice.
I'd like to table this until the next work session.
So it's my understanding we're not going to discuss these in detail most of these would go to the planning commission, where they would discuss them in detail, make a recommendation, and then we would discuss them in detail.
Correct.
So this is just, do we have an interest in updating this policy and having the planning commission take a look at it?
Yes.
Well, not all of it will be for the planning.
Yeah, not all of it will, yes. Chuck's right, not,
I was gonna say, the planning commission isn't weighing in on open burning.
correct. So really, when the board has a discussion, what the staff is looking for is if the board's interested in looking at these further, and then going from there.
So of the 5 that you've put in front of us, are there any that are problems now, it's hard to enforce, they're coming up once a month sort of thing, or just more of when it comes up once in a while, it's hard to know what to do with the decision?
I'd have to say since my time here, all of what we're presenting has come up several times. I can't say maybe
Yeah.
once a month if you average it out.
Okay.
But certainly, most of it has to do with either like updating or maybe like a policy as far as like certificates of occupancy, whether or not we go back to doing physical inspections and stuff. So, but there's different everything's pertaining to stuff that's come up multiple times over my time here and prior.
So I'm working on the assumption that the audience, the public, doesn't have this piece of paper we have in front of us, right?
Correct.
All right, so for the record, there are bullets here. One of them is open burning, one of them is public gatherings, one of them is zoning, accessory uses, one of them is certificates of occupancy code, and one of them is sewer. Those are the bulleted items that is in this memo here that we're going to consider thinking about, just so everybody knows.
I'm not sure if you can answer this, Jason, but I'm going to ask it anyway. There's 5 things here. That's a lot to discuss at any one meeting. Are there 2 or 3 of them that are more urgent or important than the rest? Could we kind of maybe divide this into 2 groups? I mean, this is just coming from me. I mean, this will be a long meeting to discuss all of these.
Probably the certificates of occupancy code, open burn. It's kind of tough to say because by the time any of this gets adopted, we're already going to be so far into the year. We don't want a meeting?
I would suggest just doing one meeting.
Okay. So you're proposing starting?
Or, I would agree, maybe the certificates of occupancy is the first one we can start on, and then the other 4 just do in whatever order. But, we usually get pretty in-depth in these sorts of discussions, so I think not only will it take a lot to do more than one, it might be a little confusing. So if we do one a meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in favor of bringing back the certificates of occupancy. I mean, I just remember when we bought our house, we had a township inspection. It was not, they didn't look at everything. They looked at the things that really mattered. Like, is there going to be a fire because the electricity is not up to code? Is there a hole in the roof? Just the real safety things. I think that's really important, especially when people aren't doing inspections.
In the meantime, too, what I can do is circle back with staff and we can prioritize, so that way we're kind of hitting these in a certain order.
I mean, I wouldn't mind suggesting 2 that I see that I don't see the use in talking about it unless it's such an issue that you guys are dealing with it many times a year. So for me personally, the open burning and the accessory uses, which focuses on animals smaller than goats, chickens, geese, rabbits, I guess ducks are in there too for fun. Keeping them under lots of 2 acres, I wouldn't even bring that subject up unless we're getting complaints all around the place. So just for me, those are two that it's going to be a lot of time spent on those, and not much is going to change.
I'll agree with you on the animals, the open burning. I think there's a couple things I would like to, unless it's already there, I'd like to see it nailed down.
Okay.
We do have people who burn their trash in the township. Surprise.
And just to clarify, so you can't have chickens unless you have 2 acres? I thought you could,
Those are just sample ordinances.
because currently I don't
Because right
think
now,
they're-
we have no regulation. So if someone, if someone has a neighbor whose chickens are we don't have enforcement. We have no way to enforce how they're housed, I'm not saying there's a problem. I just know we have a lot of residents who have chickens.
Yeah.
And there's no, at this point, it doesn't matter how large your lot size is, what your, so that's really why this came up.
does this also address like beekeeping?
Smaller than a goat.
True, that's true. I mean, I've come across people who have neighbors who live on small pieces of property who have chickens and ducks. So I think this is going to be an easy one because there's some good sample ordinances out there, and certain kinds of animals should only be on certain size land. I don't think it's that complicated. So I think this could be done easily, probably not a priority, but I think we should look at it, because it doesn't have to be an issue on every street for it to be an issue. Anyway, that's just my opinion, but, so it sounds like it's the consensus of the board. We're going to address these starting at our next work session. We'll take one at a time, and we'll start with certificates of occupancy code. Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right,
So
great.
are you, Peter or Jason, the suggestion is to do this in an omnibus type of arrangement because of what, the advertising and hearings and all the rest of that? Is that the reason?
Well, it's really the advertising is quite expensive. But looking at these 5 areas, the accessory uses, the ducks, chickens, that's the only one that's an MPC ordinance that requires to be advertised twice. All the others are only required to be advertised once. All the others don't have to go in front of the planning commission. They can if you want to send them there or to any of the other advisory committees. So, I mean, I might treat the zoning, that one, the accessory use is different, but the other 4, if you wanted to put them all together into one, we certainly could, and that would save some advertising costs.
I guess I was just concerned about the amount of time it might take us to get them all done.
Well, that's the downside, that if
What's
there's
the-
one that you want to get done quickly, the first one we finalize, it might be 6 months until we get the other ones all wrapped
Easy.
up.
I'm just going based on all the zoning stuff we did with the
Yes.
omnibus, right? So,
Can we, so I said I didn't care to talk to that one, and Chuck did. Marla supports talking about it. Can we get a decision on that or direction on that one? Because it sounds like that's going to be an expensive one to advertise. For that will probably become a bigger issue if we make a problem of it. In my opinion, if we put all sorts of detailed regulations around it, that's when it becomes a problem. It's my opinion, so if you want to talk about it, talk about it. I heard 2 people say it's not a
Yeah, it's just
huge
that I've
priority.
heard complaints from folks who say, my neighbors have chickens, they smell, they squawk, ducks, and we're talking, Spring Mountain area, we're not talking your neighborhood.
And I said what I said, so we have
So if we had
heard
something
from
that
3
said,
people.
you have to have 1 acre, you have to have 2 acres, problem solved.
Okay.
what did we decide?
I mean, I don't think we have to decide this now because it's at the bottom of the list anyway, so we can decide this later if we're going to address it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all right talking about any of these things, and then the group saying, okay, we're not going to pursue it. That's fine. I mean, maybe I'm an outlier in, you know, my feeling about the open burning. That's fine if that's the group wants to do.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. That would make sense. I was thinking of the regulating solo stoves and whatnot, but the trash burning, that could be an issue.
Okay, so we're going to move forward. We're going to start with certificates of occupancy code. We have two will be at the bottom of the list, and we will push forward. Okay? All right, super. Okay, now we have our capital improvement plan presentation. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Warren.
Warren Jacobs, Full Road. I'm extremely happy to see you guys bringing this topic up. Been an ongoing problem. I had this discussion with you, Terry Sachs, when you were, the last time that you were a supervisor, you agreed with me that we have a lot of code stuff that really needs to be fixed. I'd like to see you guys make it an ongoing thing. Pick a topic a month for the whole year, and then every year advertise it or something like that. When we passed the International Building Maintenance Code, it opened up a huge can of worms. We have so many things in that code that are irrelevant to us, that we can't possibly enforce, that are too restrictive for us. We don't need just more code, more rules. We need to get rid of some of the goofy, unnecessary restrictions. It's not like we live in a gated community here. Also, we need to make it easier for people to understand exactly what the code is. If you were to go, for instance, look up what the requirements were for a pool fence, you're going to see a number on that code if you look it up in E-codes. But you're not going to find it in E-codes because it's not in E-codes. It's not one of our codes. It's in the broad International Building Maintenance Code. You have to know where to look. It's really hard to find some of this stuff. And I think it'd be really good if we could do something to update the website to let people have an easier time finding this stuff. I remember how upset I was when we originally passed that International Building Maintenance Code. Tamara called me up and said, guess what? Now we have a weed ordinance. Yeah, and I said, Tamara, well, we just have a bird town too, and we're trying to encourage people to nativize their lawns. How does that mesh? And she said, well, it doesn't pertain to you. You have more than 2 acres. But no, come on. Some of the stuff just doesn't match our township, today's needs. And Jason thought of 5 things off the top of his head. I'm sure if you wanted input from the public, you could have at least a topic a month for the rest of all your terms.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Diane.
So I did have a cup of decaf coffee before I came tonight, but I know I'm being very talkative and verbose. The AC did look at our open burning code, and it does include that you cannot burn trash. So that's really something that just needs to be, we need to have our code enforcement people on that, which brings me to what Warren was talking about not knowing our codes. Every month, our police officer lets us know how many tickets or stops or whatever were made. He doesn't name names of who he gave the tickets to, but our zoning officer is also doing things. And if our zoning officer would give a monthly report about, okay, I issued 2 tickets or fines because people were doing the open burning of trash, then we as residents would learn and be able to look at that zoning officer's report and say, oh, open burning of trash, can't do it. Now I know. It's another way of reaching the public and letting them know. So I hope you will consider having our zoning officer give a monthly report, not naming names, but at least naming what we can and can't do, what fines were for. So thank you for listening, and thank you for bringing up these topics.
Thank you. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so as promised from last year's budget cycle, we would have a couple of information's kind of sessions on capital improvement plan and kind of what goes with it. So this is kind of continuation from what the board asked of me when we adopted the budget last year or for this year. So some of these slides may look familiar because it was in my budget presentation back in the fall of last year. So the capital improvement plan was adopted with the budget on December 21st, 2023. What is a capital improvement plan? It's a multi-year plan that identifies necessary and/or desirable capital items. Capital items includes major equipment, infrastructure, technology, major projects. The CIP is a tool for prioritizing and planning. The CIP changes annually based on circumstances. And the CIP is not a commitment to funding. That part comes later. So the benefits. Enhanced infrastructure and services. Improved quality of life, upgrading and maintaining infrastructure such as roads, parks, and public facilities enhances residents' daily lives. Safety, ensuring that critical infrastructure like bridges and public buildings meets safety standards, reduces risks to the public. Long-term financial planning. Fiscal responsibility. By planning expenditures over several years, the township can manage its finances more effectively, avoiding sudden large expenditures that strain the budget. The efficient use of funds. Prioritizing projects ensures that available funds are used where they are most needed and will have the most significant impact. Economic development. Attracting businesses and residents. Improved infrastructure makes the township more attractive to new businesses and residents, fostering economic growth. Community engagement and transparency. Public involvement. Developing a CIP can involve community input, ensuring that projects align with the residents' needs and preferences. Transparency. A well-documented CIP makes the decision-making process transparent, building trust between the government and the community. 5, strategic and coordinated development. Comprehensive planning. The CIP provides a framework for coordinating various projects, ensuring they complement rather than conflict with each other. Alignment with goals. Projects are selected based on their alignment with the township's long-term strategic goals and objectives. Grant and funding opportunities. Access to grants. Many grant programs require CIP as part of the application process, making the township eligible for additional funding. This allows the township to plan for alternative financing such as leases or loans, along with grants. Operational efficiency. Reduced maintenance costs. Regularly scheduled improvements and preventive maintenance can reduce the need for costly emergency repairs. Optimized asset management. A CAP allows for better management of township assets, extending their life and improving their functionality, such as the chip seal project that was completed last week on our roads. Adaptability to change. Proactive planning. By anticipating future needs and challenges, the township can be better prepared for changes in population, technology, and regulatory requirements. Flexibility. The CIP can be updated annually to reflect changing conditions and priorities, ensuring that the township remains adaptable and responsive. So here is just a slide showing some of the different assets that we have around the township. One of the Riverside Pump Station, the township building, obviously public works trucks, police vehicles, Parks, adoption of the CIP by the BOS, by the Board of Supervisors for 2024. What does this mean now, and what happens now? What does this mean? A CIP was created for the general fund and sewer fund. Each fund CIP is broken down by categories. The annual rate of inflation was 3.5% for the general fund and 7% for the sewer fund. For the 2024 budget cycle and beyond, the board committed to setting aside at least $200,000 for the general fund and $100,000 for the sewer fund. This allows for putting money aside on a yearly basis for future purchasing. The goal being at some point in the future, the fund could potentially become self-sustaining. Fund transfers of $295,434 for the general fund and $195,640 for the sewer fund were authorized with the adoption of the budget for this year. The CIP categories. So under the general fund, you have the admin, police, building, and public works. For the sewer fund, capital improved CIP, you have the sewer plant, sewer lines, and manholes, and the pump stations. The capital improvement plan, types of improvements. Capital equipment, that includes police equipment, vehicles, public works vehicles, trucks, IT equipment. Road and street improvements, annual resurfacing, sidewalks and signals and signs. Storm sewer projects, engineering and construction related to storm sewer maintenance and improvements. Sanitary sewer projects, engineering, construction, and maintenance of sewer system and plant, and any future extensions. Public building improvements, major renovations and maintenance of township buildings. Park township property improvements, major maintenance and renovations of parks and other township amenities. The set aside dollars for the general fund was based on the current and future needs. A percent of the overall set aside amount is determined. The general fund total was 200 equals 200,000. The percent breakdown is based on the needs of the categories. As it's shown here, currently the admin is 3%, buildings 22%, police is 5%, and public works is 70%. Then 50% charge against the balance of the category each year, which allows the category to accumulate funds over time. By 2030, the amount in the general fund capital reserve is projected to be $544,194 based on the current budget and projections.
Jason, do you want to take questions now or wait till the end?
It's up to you. I mean, this is as
Can you
much.
just explain a little more, because I'm a little dense?
So
The 50% charge against balance of category.
so that the fund has an opportunity to accumulate monies of that 200 or of the 200,000 or 50% of what's in that category goes towards the current year purchasing. So then the remaining balance would get transferred into the next year, and then the general fund takes the rest. If that category is not able to purchase whatever we're buying fully, then the general fund is what offsets it, which is instead of 200,000, we have 295,000, which means one of those categories, or maybe multiple categories this year, is telling me that we needed 95,000 additional monies to make our capital improvement purchasing projects, whatever we're doing. Still clear as mud? Well, so this is why I threw this in there, because I know during the budget cycle, it was definitely, it's not easy to understand. No, that's why, honestly, Chuck, that's why I broke this slide down, because I realized it probably got lost in the budget cycle trying, how are we trying to, how are we working at trying to accumulate a fund balance or a capital improvement fund balance?
Okay, so $200,000 goes each year out of the budget towards the general fund capital improvement plan.
Yes.
So where's the 50%? Is that on top of that?
So each category has a balance that it carries over year. So within that category, if you're buying a truck and the truck is $60,000 and you have $120,000 in that category, then at that point, it's meeting the 50% criteria. We won't need additional funds from the general fund, that category.
Okay.
So when I say this, the 200,000s, it's what, at the very least, if it doesn't need help from the general fund, at least 200,000 would go from the general fund to the CIP.
Okay, now it's sinking in. Great, thank you. Yeah.
I got lucky, I think. It was a blast putting this together, like a few years ago when I tried to come up with it was not fun. So I appreciate your quick understanding, because it took me a little longer with my previous group. So the sewer fund, same way. It's based on the current future needs, and a percent of overall set aside amount is determined. And that's a typo. That should say sewer fund total. So for this budget cycle, we determined 100,000 set aside. That percent breakdown, and once again, these percentages, essentially, they're just looking at what those needs of those categories are. So pump stations at 5%, sewer lines and manhole 10%, and then the sewer plant taking up the bulk of 85%. Once again, 50% charge against balance of category, which allows the category to accumulate funds over time. And by 2030, the amount of the sewer capital fund is projected to be $563,244. So the set aside money would be one of the things that the board could tweak on a year-to-year basis, but the goal is trying to commit at least a set amount to try to get the CIP, to have money in the CIP.
Can I ask the public to wait till we're done with this? And yeah,
Yeah, we can go back to it.
Yeah.
We don't have too much longer. So what happens now? Project planning, procurement and contracting. Excuse me. Let me back up. Project planning. Project design and planning. Initiate detailed design and planning for each project, including architectural and engineering designs, environmental assessments, and obtaining any necessary permits. Procurement and contracting. Secure quotes for the board to review and approve following the PA state bidding requirements. If an RFP is needed, that would need to be approved by the BOS. Request for proposals, RFPs, would prepare and issue RFPs if needed for contractors, consultants, and suppliers needed for the CIP projects. Bid evaluation and awarding. Evaluate the bids, select the contractors, and award contracts based on criteria such as cost, experience, capability. And then contracts would be negotiate the contracts and finalize terms and conditions with selected contractors, and vendors. Securing the funding, this would be through grant applications. We can apply for state and federal grants, as well as other funding opportunities that may support the CIP projects. Budget allocation, allocate budgeted funds, and ensure proper financial management and oversight for each project. Project implementation. Construction and development, to begin the construction and development activities as per the project timeline and schedules. Monitoring oversight, establish a monitoring oversight mechanism to ensure projects stay on schedule and within budget, regularly review project milestones and performance. Monitoring and evaluation, provide periodic progress reports to the BOS, issue resolution, address any issues or delays promptly through effective project management and communication. Annual review and update. There'd be an annual CIP review, conduct an annual review of the CIP to assess progress, update project priorities, incorporate any new needs or opportunities. Adjustments and amendments, propose and approve adjustments or amendments to the CIP and the budget as necessary to address changing circumstances or emerging priorities. Essentially saying from year to year during the budget cycle, the CIP is where we will spend a good amount of time. Long-term planning, future planning, continue to plan for future CIP updates, ensuring that the township remains proactive in addressing its infrastructure and facility needs. Prioritize planning to allow for planning engineering to take place, to allow for a project to be ready, and I put this on quotes, on the shelf, to allow us to submit for grant funding when applicable. Also, prioritizing projects allows the township staff to know which projects may be more important to the supervisors. Sustainability and adaptation, incorporate sustainable practices and adapt new technologies and regulatory requirements to future-proof the township's infrastructure. Oops. Oh, geez. By following these steps, Lower Frederick Township can effectively transition from the planning phase to the execution phase of the CIP, ensuring successful implementation and delivering the anticipated benefits to the community. So this was a similar slide to last year's budget. I just adopted it to what the board actually adopted. So those were just the total amounts as far as breakdown between capital and equipment, public building improvement, road street improvement, and the sanitary sewer. And those are the projects that accompany it. I don't, unless you want me to, I don't know that you want, do I need to read those or? Okay, so this is a timeline for the general fund. I say proposed because currently this is budgeted, but as I stated earlier, the CIP is not set in stone. So these are just the CIP amounts for projects through 2028. And I'm just pointing out what the largest category. As you can see, public works, generally speaking, is the largest category from year to year. With an intermingling of buildings, and I'm assuming that police is probably, we might have more than one piece of equipment in there. The sewer fund, same thing. One of the advantages with the new sewer plan is we don't currently have as much on the CIP. But over time, that will grow, and that's where it's up to us to try to stay out ahead and make the improvements where we can make the improvements. So that's why you've got 3 years where we're not showing any capital projects. And then this is just another 5-year total. So over a 5-year total, $1.902 million, and that's just a breakdown. Once again, kind of showing Public Works gets dinged because they have the most equipment, and we have paving in some of the future CIP years, along with the buildings. Just another picture or a slide of our, we got our bridge, we got a road, equipment, a stormwater project, and a sanitary sewer manhole. In summary, the township will continue to look into alternative ways to pay for capital needs, utilize restricted funds where we can, i.e. the liquid fuels or currently the ARPA fund, COVID relief funds, lease equipment and equipment capital loans when applicable or at least as an option, and grant opportunities. The goal of the board would be to commit set-aside funds to attempt to make the capital fund self-sustaining for both the general and sewer funds. As I stated earlier, these are the current set-aside amounts for each fund. Percent of set-aside dollars is distributed amongst the CIP categories, as I've stated previous. And as a reminder, funds are appropriated during the budget cycle of each fiscal year. Implementing a capital improvement plan provides Lower Frederick Township with a roadmap for sustainable growth and development. It enables the township to enhance infrastructure, manage finances prudently, stimulate economic development, engage the community, and achieve strategic objectives. These benefits collectively contribute to a higher quality of life overall for residents and a stronger, more resilient township. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions from the board? Very thorough.
So what's the plan going forward in the sense of, like, you had numbers in there, and I know we talked about numbers last year around budget time. Are we going to go in and revisit those numbers and the assumptions, and when is that going to happen? Do we break that discussion up over a number of meetings, because there's a lot there?
So the goal, or I should say my goal, the staff goal, would be to visit that where we start looking at what we have projects, certainly what's on the list for today or this year, what we have for the next 5 to 10 years, see if there's anything missing or something that's maybe been completed or maybe we don't have as much of a need for, and then basically provide that update to the board. What I'd be looking for in this budget cycle, starting this in September. And once again, the way we have the sewer and the general fund set up, because as you may recall, most of those, you've got O&M costs, you've got labor. Generally speaking, unless we're adding people, subtracting people, or something is getting added to as far as O&M costs, those costs remain relatively the same, except for what we choose as far as an inflation number when it comes to looking at next year. Where a lot of time gets spent is what projects, what capital, that's where I would expect the board to spend a lot of time. So to your answer, Chuck, yes, I would want to start that in September so we can hit the ground running. Say if we have our first budget meeting at the beginning of October or at the end of September, then we're already ahead of certainly where we were last year, and it allows the board time to digest what's in front of them, ask the questions they want to ask. Obviously, one of the things for us is to secure, I know one of the comments last year was, where are some of these numbers coming from? And yeah, they're we're guesstimating what we may anticipate. So,
Well, I just think the public ought to know and I should, somebody asked me, I should have a clue on it too.
Yep.
So you mentioned sewer. I'm going to also, while I'm thinking about it, I would like to see by the fall an update to the self-liquidating debt report.
Yes.
So that we know where we are. That would make me very happy.
Understood, sir.
I just want to make a comment on what you just said, Jason. I'd like to make a request that we start looking at this in August, because things have a way of getting backed up. And if we aim for August, and we still have a little bit of wiggle room, but I'm just nervous that if we aim for September, things could happen. So I think earlier is always better, if that's at all possible.
Yeah, certainly. I guess when you say August, are you saying like August work session or August?
Yeah, like the
general
August work session, because that gets us kind of ahead of budget season. I mean, last year was unique, but, every year is unique and things can happen. So I just think if we start earlier, it's going to be all for the good.
No, I agree. I mean, that's the advantage we have now. All the hard work was done last year, getting it together. And this is part of the whole educating so that, you guys better understand what we're presenting. And it shouldn't be as much of a monumental task as getting over the hump of And I do plan, just so the board is aware, I was planning probably at one of the July meetings to kind of go over where we're at in our capital improvement plans, where we're at in those projects, and kind of give an update on how that's working. And certainly the other part of that is we need to review our ARPA COVID relief projects and where we're at on that, so we don't end up having to, where we leave money on the table. So that, just so the board is aware, I am looking at the July meeting for that.
Good. Any other comments or questions from the board? Is that a no? Nope. No. Okay. Go ahead, Diane.
Jason, thank you. This is starting to make sense that the township can stay organized for what's in front of them. So it isn't just when things pop up, you'll probably have, this is the project that's going to go under this particular category and so forth, so you can keep track of it all, and then we'll understand too. You have engaged the public. I am engaged. I did note that there's only 10% of the one category for sewer that's going to lines, to sewer lines. So if it's 100,000 and it's 10%, that's 10,000 you're expecting to put away. So that within the 10 years, which I would like to see be like 2, 3, 4, or 5 years to have sewer go down Zieglerville Road. Yeah, I can wish. There are currently no grants, but maybe our legislature will start to put money towards that. So is that always a hard percentage? You named a couple of percentages, and the sewer lines were 10%, but can that shift around?
Oh, for sure. It's the CIP is like a living, breathing type of document. So nothing's set in stone other than what the board adopts for that current budget cycle. So that's where every year, and that's where, in my opinion, my experience, we'll spend a lot of time in the CIP because that's, generally speaking, that's where all your big dollar projects are.
Okay, so in our current Act 537, or the one that's about to be adopted, because I think the DEP is good with it, it does either say the general fund or the capital improvements plan will be part of how the sewer line down Zieglerville Road is funded. So if you keep that in mind, am I wrong about that?
Maybe someone can correct me, but I believe only money from the sewer fund can be used for the sewer.
So it must say capital improvement.
It has to be out of the sewer fund. We cannot use general fund monies.
Well, the capital improvement
public
plan's
sewer.
going to have sewer in it now, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it must say capital improvement plan in that first paragraph that says how much it's going to cost and how it's going to be paid for. So this is the capital improvement plan. So that's how the sewer line's going to be paid for. So I hope that you'll all think about that, and maybe it's more than 10% that you're always thinking about needs to go in so that that project can be done as soon as possible. And thanks for listening. And thank you, I understand now what this CIP is about.
Thank you. Do you want to stop sharing? Are there any questions from the Zoom people? Looks like a no. Okay. Are we going to discuss the next item? Sewer fund billing? I don't see anything in the packet.
I would like to table that for next week.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to police request.
Asking to have the the trees that are in the parking lot. We have one that is completely dead. The second one is looks like it has a fungus growing on towards the root of it. It's causing our cars, both our personal and our township vehicles, to be completely covered in bird droppings on a consistent basis. The board spent a lot of money when we replaced the 2 new cars and got the new cars. With the cars sitting for extended period of time, it is starting to already eat away at the new paint on the cars. So I would request if we could have those 2 trees removed. I believe that should probably alleviate some of the problem that we're having with the damage that's ultimately going to occur to the cars on the paint and the staff cars.
Okay, what does the board think? So just to reiterate, 1 tree is dead.
Calm down.
I haven't seen.
Keep it calm down and they paint you a paint.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, if they're dead or dying, we can confirm that, then they should definitely go. Otherwise, I don't know what the solution is if you can't park the cars anywhere else. It's your parking spots, right?
I mean,
Are they, right, where are the trees?
so
at?
it's the entire back parking lot, both where the police
Yeah.
parking is, the other parking. And I know the police aren't the only ones that are being affected by it. I know it's the ambulance staff. I mean, it's everyone. It's quote unquote a war zone that all our cars are going through right now. I'm just trying to prevent, if it, taking the 1 tree that's dead, the other one looks like it has a fungus, it's gonna save the cars in the long run, where we have to pay to get the paint restored.
And we do have an awning or like a carport. I believe it's either next year or 2 years, 2 years in the CIP plan. Understanding that we would like to get the police vehicles out of the weather in general. So at least getting some kind of overhead. I don't know that it may alleviate the bird situation, but
I think something would be better than nothing. The only other option would be to park up here. However, that's a huge safety issue, especially at night, when unfortunately the world we live in, officers anywhere are targets of ambushes. So at least with the cars outside our door, it's less of a risk. I mean, the job itself is a risk, but if there's ways to prevent risks, so still parking down there is better than having to walk, come up and through, especially when we don't have a way to secure the building if we're coming in and out through the office area.
So I have a quick question. I don't have an objection to removing the trees. If they're dead, they're dying, they're diseased. Assuming that might help the problem, maybe it won't. Maybe it's a stretch to ask, do you have a way to wash your vehicles off back there?
So we do have a car wash account, which is up by district court. The problem that we're having is, and I know from experience, this happened to me the other day. I took 2 cars up that were covered, brought them both back. They were looking great, looked brand new out of the showroom. Walked out of the station after doing paperwork, and they were covered again. So as soon as we wash them, they're getting hit again.
So you don't have any way, like a hose or anything out there that you could just
We don't have any of the cleaning. I mean, we could put one in, but we don't have that right now.
I mean, you said in the capital improvement plan, we do have a carport. Okay.
that would be one of the things maybe we visit sooner than later. I was
Right.
using that as an example of, something that may help with that situation.
I mean, we put a lot of money into the police vehicles, and they get a lot of wear. And if they're getting deteriorated and we have to put more money into them, I think we can live without 1 tree back there. So I'm okay with it. And hopefully we can come up with a more long-term solution.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone in favor or object?
If it's disrupting the operation, then that's, the bottom line, right? So,
Do we have to vote? No, just so we have consensus? Okay,
it's fine.
Thank you.
thank you. I guess when we decided it was going to be a bird town, the birds all heard about it, and they all came. Yeah. Okay, last one should be easy. Fireplace request, Perkiomen Township wants support at the high school graduation. Do we have to vote on this?
Yes, that's just standard.
Okay, so we just need a motion to approve the fire police request for the Perkiomen Township for the Perk Valley High School graduation. Can I have a
That's Friday, June 7th of 2024.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Chuck Geiser will second.
All right, so Supervisor Halter made the motion, Supervisor Geiser made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, that brings us to public comment. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Bob Burns, Zieglerville Road. One of the things that Diane was talking about in reference to the sewer capital, I've been asking for years, Terry Bird's also been asking about the EDU money. So here again, the EDU is broken down into an ABC, 3 components. So the $7,405.26 gets broken up between those 3. Component A is like $5,100. I believe that's the component that also allows the township to take some of that $5,100 and use that for capital improvements. So Jason had mentioned, I believe at the last meeting, 18 EDOs from Riverside, is that right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so that would be like $130-some thousand. And as he was talking about that, he said we were only $58,000 ahead. So I'm a little confused. If we were supposed to have like 130,000 from those 18 EDUs, and we're only having 58,000, then that money's being used for sewer payments that need to go out. So we're not allocating the EDU money to the appropriate places. And as I said, I know I've brought it up for years. Mr. Byrd has been on top of it for at least the last 2 years asking, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So I think that's something that we need to look into because, you know, as Diane was saying, whatever the percentage that her and Jason were talking about, that's not where the money comes from to build the new lines. That money can be used for repair of existing lines. I mean, we haven't done anything this year, like Carol usually has, you know, the relining or infiltration work. So I don't believe we have anything current for this year. And I know we have money, you know, in the capital fund for that. In the last slide project that Jason was going through, he also talked about bridges and design and stuff to that nature. So I know I've been bringing to you guys the attention all the way back, as Warren mentioned, when Mr. Sachs was on the board last time. Gerloff Bridge, the state took that, gave it to us, told us it's our baby, we have to pay for it. Some of you will remember when Mr. Tobias was here that he got a quote of like $80,000, I think it was. We only tightened some bolts up out there, so that bridge needs to be looked at. I don't know if bolts need to be tightened. I know there's painting, whatever. I don't know if we have a quote on it yet. I mean, I talked to Mark about it. I think I mentioned it to Jason. The last meeting, I mentioned the bridge on Zieglerville Road. A couple of meetings ago, I mentioned the culvert on Smith Road. I think we really need to have somebody come out, structurally check out our bridges, let us know where we stand so that we can put the appropriate money in the capital improvement fund where it needs to be and give us an idea as to how long all these different variables are. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Go ahead, Warren.
Warren Jacobs, Fulmer Road. I would like to thank Carol for taking the initiative. When she drew up the plan for the swale on Zieglerville Road, for using the new information from our saldo for the tree planting, I didn't realize previously that we were going to be replacing trees. But I'm assuming you took the initiative and did that. And it's really great to see that being used. I'm hoping we do that going forward with township projects as well as development projects. And I'm hoping we now follow through with the inspection and make sure it was done according to that plan that she drew up. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Okay.
Different subject altogether. I mentioned Carol's name and it hit me on something. Zieglerville Road, Carol. Last year, you had Pannoni Associates come in from the developer, gave a suggestion as to what needed to be done. The Board of Supervisors decided to take the striping and the signs. So everybody's going to look at me funny when I mention the word shark teeth. Obviously, I think you know what I mean when I'm talking about shark teeth. Okay, so where the crosswalk is, there's a line, let's call it 40, 50 feet up the road and down the road on either side of the crosswalk. What you'll see is, you'll see a triangle that's probably like a 16-inch or 20-inch triangle, okay, that's on that white line. They're called shark teeth, okay? So what they are supposed to be is the designated area where the yield sign belongs. The yield sign, as it stands right now, is right at the crosswalk. You don't yield for pedestrians in the crosswalk. You yield back at the line where the shark teeth are. You can look it up under the MUTCD or however you say that, and you'll find out exactly what, I think we have the signs, it's just in the wrong place. So if that's something that's on your punch list or something you want to look at, I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move to supervisor comment. Do we have any supervisor comment this evening?
Sure.
Okay.
So I know we'd had a presentation in the beginning of the evening. Good chance I'm not going to be here next week. My personal feeling is I wish we had a way to try this out instead of jumping in. I kind of personally agree with a lot of what I heard some of the residents say in terms of perhaps some redundancy of things that we already have in place. It seemed like a little pricey per year, but that's just me, and I'm figuring I'll get my thoughts out now if I'm not here next week and you are voting on it. The other thing, regarding Mr. Burns's comments, I fully agree with that, and we may not like what we find, and I'm sure everybody will come here and support us if we decide that we need to ask the residents for more tax money. Thanks.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.